Hi-de-do, people of the internet. So, it's been a while. I've had my dissertation and essays. I'm finally free, apart from I'm not, because I possibly have an extension, but it hasn't been confirmed. It's confusing. I'm a mess. But I've had the time to finally edit this. I actually recorded this all over the Easter holiday, so sorry, but life gets in the way. So, first I did my research. So, using Logan's 2014, I looked on Google Scholar for some info on the zodiac. It gives me the base information. So, Pisces is female, so feminine, water, mutable, and associated with Neptune. Unfortunately, I'm not going to be able to release this within the dates. Or maybe. No, it's the 20th today as I'm recording this. So from Neptune, I went in and just got some info on the planet, and I also got the key, like what she stands for. So dreams and self-delusion. And that's kind of what I ran with. So a theme throughout is kind of clouds, and you're just like, Teresa, this is Pisces. She wet, she not cloud. No. Well, my idea, accidentally, is there's three forms of water, right? Ice, water, and water vapor. So she's kind of, for me, like the daydream. She is the representation of like the change of like weather and like how changeable it is, especially here in York. Like you get 5 minutes of rain and then it'll be every weather. I have had a day where it's rained, hailed, been sunny, and been normal. So this is kind of what she represents to me, and also some just little pieces of information about the planet. So the god of the sea is kind of obvious, but she's kind of like got, the planet has a ice and rock core, so she's kind of hard on the inside, I guess, and kind of more hydrogen and helium and methane and gassy on the outside. So when you get to that core, I think she's actually like a really good friend, or a really dependable person when push comes to shove. So a huge part of this repaint was the reroute. I found a new technique of making sure that you're cutting the excess hair off as close as possible, because I think most of them I want to turn into wefts and make some sort of a fun wig. I'm not sure. I'm a bit of a scrounging Scrooge, and using a seam ripper you can get right up to the scalp and like optimum length. So at this point we've just got a lot of hair and glue stuck on the inside. So I boil a kettle and put it in a mug and let the doll sit in there. I've tried doing it like pouring out of the kettle onto the head, but soaking it works better in my opinion. And then hold it with a towel, don't get burned, and rip that puppy off. Wait, rip it off. You get the uber satisfying noise of the head removal, followed up by the uber satisfying pulling of hair from their reroute into the head so that you can remove it. It's hard to explain, but you can see it's easy to explain. And when it's all done, whoop-de-doop, look at that hairball, that's a lot of glue. So for once, I deemed it worthy to paint a coloured underlayer. Specifically, I thought this was more important because the majority of the hair, the wool reroute was with white wool. So white is the least pigmented colour. In fact, you could almost say it's the absence of pigment, and therefore it's the most transparent, and you'd be able to see the scalp and such way more easily than any other colour. However, man, did I fudge this up. I was impatient and I essentially put down a thick layer of paint. I didn't water it down that much because initially I was trying to use white. However, white is the least pigmented colour, so you need to do it in multiple thin layers. I'm impatient, So I kind of got a kind of connected crust of acrylic, so it kind of lifted up when I tried to, please put the time and effort in, do better than I did. But I mean, it turned out, I ended up doing it in a light blue, but I could have just honestly done the skin because I used Blue Skin Doll. By the way, it was actually accidental that I used this doll. I actually picked her for her eye shape. I had a lot of trouble in the unicorn repaint with her eye shape because it's much more bulgy than other dolls, but I thought it would be perfect for this one because I really wanted a wide-eyed, youthful eye, and it seemed perfect. It just so happened that she's also a mermaid aquatic doll, so she has fins, and it's actually appropriate for the Pisces-ness, but I actually kind of forgot that Pisces was a water type. I'm dumb. Another issue that came up because of my thick layer, but I think also if you did multiple thin layers would probably happen, is that you've covered up the holes, obviously. So once again, using my unpicker, I poked the holes again and it was all good. So finally we get to the actual reroute. I used a memory bank. I kind of just twisted it around and around and around, and that ensures that all of the hair pieces are the same length. Now you get to see the return of the white, slightly sparkly wool that I used in my Christmas pom-pom wreath. So reuse your stuff, girls, or boys, people. It's cheaper, it's better for the environment, and cheaper. That's important. So I'm going to insert a video of the satisfying reroute sound of pushing it in. It's more of a satisfying feeling, really. I've had a lot of satisfying moments thus far. So you push it in and you push when you're inside of the head cavity. It's great. I recommend. And I actually found it's a lot easier actually to use wool rather than nylon hair, because A, it's less slippery, and B, it's only getting one strand rather than trying to get like 20, and I kind of scratch up my fingers less, so I actually prefer doing wool reroutes. So the most of it is white. I was inspired to try and create a mix of pastel rainbow, so I bought some excess yarn off someone on eBay, and I got a nice creamy yellow, purple, blue and orangey kind of pastel colours, and I just rerouted those in appropriately. I was really happy with what I did. I made a little rainbow on one side of her head. Thought it's so cute. Another reason it can be a lot quicker to do a wool reroute is, as I did kind of later on to patch up, is if it's not around the scalp kind of where you'll see it, you can just put in a whole yarn. So I've been splitting my yarn. It's usually 3 pieces intertwined, but if you just put all 3 of them in at the same time, it's obviously going to take up a lot more space, because the thing is, wool is really kind of full of air. So it's much smaller in that quantity than it actually looks like. You can just put it in, but I tend to split them because I like the texture more, but you can put it in and then split it. So it's just a thing of making sure your reroute isn't patchy. You don't want to have gaps. And now in terms of the style of the reroute, I actually did a poll on Instagram of, it's kind of short hair, and then I gave an option with bun on its head and with long side bangs. I don't know how to say it, but basically there was an option that had neither, that had both, had one or the other. So it was so split that I just decided to do the one that had all. The first layer of a repaint is always kind of the hardest, so going with the lighter colour, you're setting up the base of all the shapes and where you're going to put more depth in later. So I put in a light blue, and you have to be careful, that's kind of setting up the strong base of keeping your eyes symmetrical and everything going good from then on. when I've got the basic pencil base down, I start using the same pencil, but I wet it, so you get a lot more pigment put down at once, and it's a much easier process. I actually find it much easier, maybe because I work more in actual watery watercolours than colouring pencils. And you get to one of the most difficult parts, the pupils. You want to make sure that they're not being bug-eyed, looking out in different directions. I find actually it's helpful to draw them slightly too inwards, and same with the pupil, then you'd think, because it's a three-dimensional object, so it kind of looks a bit different from different angles. I'm not sure. I'm a scientist, but not that kind. I don't even know what kind of scientist would understand that, but it's certainly not me. And I think I did pretty well. I actually think the bulbous nature of this moulding makes it a bit easier in this case. One of the most fun parts about this repaint, I think I've mentioned quite a few, but I experimented with pastels. I saw some really cool, like galaxy style colour swirls and stuff on some dolls, and I thought it looked so cool, so cute. I want to do light blue, yellow, purple version of that, just like adorable pastel galaxy. So I got the Mangio soft pastels, recommended by Delightful. They are actually really good, much better than the other ones I have, but they're also slightly less pigmented than some cheaper artificial ones, so it's all a balance of what's worth it for you. I mean, if you're not selling them, like I'm not, I probably shouldn't have them, shouldn't really invest that much, but you know, I'm a sucker for quality art supplies. But either way, I kind of did splodges, a gradient for colour, so I tried to make them meld together, and it probably took collectively about 5 layers to get the finishing result. I'm not going to show you all of these layers because it's literally the same. Like, I'm putting on another layer of blue, another layer of pastel, but you can't see the difference unless it's like really, well, you can't see it on camera, you can in real life. Another experiment I did, because I'm a sucker for punishment, is trying to create a slightly open mouth. I thought she was kind of more of a toothy, open mouth smiler and living her best life. So I used white to do the inside. I think it worked well doing a white for this character, but next time I do it, I might try to use a darker colour and then put white on top. I'm not sure how that will work, but this time I did it in reverse. I put white in, and then I used pencil, kind of a darker lip colour, to kind of line the outside and hopefully give it some depth. I'm not sure if I succeeded, but I think it looks cute enough even if it isn't exactly what I originally intended. I left the pupils, the iris, I also left the pupils blank. I left the iris blank because I wanted to try doing a very subtle colour gradient similar to the cheeks using the pastel, going from pink to blue to yellow. I kind of regret using the yellow in the hairline because I think it just did not meld well with the doll's original colour, but maybe in a different colour it could look cute. Don't let me put you off. But I actually really like the pastels as iris. Like, I did it with my Angel doll repaint, and I think it looked so cool, and I was very happy with the results this time too. But it only really works for if you want pastel kind of light colours. It doesn't work so well for vibrancy. This is all followed up by a technique I'm working very hard to develop. Just having a clear tear duct area, because the doll repaints I really like the art of tend to have quite defined tear ducts, and I'm trying. So what I've found kind of works for me is I wet the pink water duct colour and then put the line, and then I use the fine pencil of whatever I've used in the rest of the eye and outer line around it, so you can kind of control the shape and you don't need to be as perfect. And we finish up the repaint with the fun detail work. So we've got white clouds, so that was in my original design. Like she hasn't got pupils at all, she's got clouds. Her head is literally in the clouds, her head is the clouds, her eyes are the clouds, she only has eyes for her dreams and clouds and I don't know, nonsense. So I used the white watercolour, and I actually think I then went on for the other parts to use acrylic, but I think the watercolour was perfect for the clouds because you want them to be semi-transparent, and just the texture within the pencil itself kind of makes it dabby and irregularly how opaque it is in itself. So if you wanted it to be opaque, go for acrylic like I did with the stars, but if you want clouds, pencil's for you. But as I've already mentioned, I continued with this white and I did proper pastel galaxy by putting the sun, well, no sun, but we got a little moon on one cheek and stars just kind of scattered across. You want it to look naturally, just not artificially patterned. So you don't want a zigzag of up, down. You want to have it a bit random, but apparently that's kind of impossible for humans to do, so don't be too hard on yourself. So I kind of put the plan down, and then it wasn't doing it. I wanted it to be more opaque, so I went into acrylic. And when that's all dried, more Mr. Super Clear, and we're done into outfits. To start off with, this fabric inspired the outfit. It's offcuts from a curtain, I assume, from Sewing Society, and I just thought it would look really nice as like a traditional outfit, and hanbok just flew into my head, and I was just like, let's make a modern hanbok style outfit. So it consists of a jacket, so it's kind of made as a jacket's usually made. You got the 2 front pieces, 2 back pieces, sewn all together, get your sleeves on, and I'd recommend make the sleeves way bigger because A, they actually have quite big sleeves, it makes sense, and B, I'm just dumb and the arms couldn't fit in, so I had to cut a gap in one of them. And then the skirt, it's kind of non-traditional in that it's a dress, a jacket, and a kind of open skirt that's actually kind of reminiscent of like the Renaissance drawings, so I don't know. So I cut out what I wanted the shape for, kind of cupcake shaped, and then made the pattern for the skirt, or the dress's skirt area, by using the pattern for the overlayer, but I wanted it to have more volume and make the kind of bell curved shape. So I made it about 1.5 the length, and then plated it all together with a very basic bodice. I actually found the pleating technique on Pinterest, and it's kind of more interesting version. I think it would have worked better in curtains or whatever it's supposed to be used for, but I thought it was a bit more fun than just the normal straight through stitch. With the repaint done and the final sealing layer, I put the head, not the face, I put the head in water to soften up the rubber so that I can put it back on the body. This led to, when I unwrapped the head burrito, it was kind of wet wool, so I had to wait quite a while for it to dry, but it was impressive. You kind of don't know how it's going to look until you see everything together. For example, the annoyance of the yellow gradient that didn't reach the hairline, but also is kind of very obvious compared to the blank skin. When it's all dry, she gets a haircut and a hairstyle. So I put out 2 sections already for the space buns on either side. I decided on space buns rather than buns because she had a parting and it made sense to keep it symmetrical. Ended up cuter in my opinion than a single bun. Also the snipping of the bangs. and the dangly side bangs things that I have no idea what they're called, and they're not really something that I see in England, but they're in a lot of anime. May I add, this was actually my first time successfully making space buns, and I think it went quite well. Rather than using elastic or anything to keep it in, I used the wig making method of just sewing that sucker up, and it really holds much better. I definitely recommend this accidental technique that I came up with, but I'm sure I'm not the first one to do. And we're all done, all dressed up. I'm very happy with the doll. I think it turned out well. I think if I could do anything better, I need to work on putting more depth and use kind of more contrasting colours, but this was a pastel doll. I think I got away with it. So, if you are a Pisces, tell me, can you see a bit of yourself in her? If you believe in that kind of stuff, then what do you think? And yeah, I hope there's some techniques, or you just had fun watching, listening, enjoying. And yeah, I talked about my Instagram. You can follow me on Instagram. I mostly post drawings that I do, and yeah, subscribe. Thank you, come again, guys.